Hey, what do you think I should do? Hey, what's your take? I'm like, well, it's just like you saying, hey, where do you think I should go? I don't know. Yeah, if you give me an address, I can tell you where to go. But if you don't have a destination, I can't give you useful directions. So it turns out the punchline to that is what you want doesn't matter nearly as much as what you need. And what people want varies. It's like, oh, I want a guy who's like 6'2" or taller. Okay, great. Educated. Okay, fine. Makes X amount of money. Fine. Like spicy food. Sure, whatever, right? Turns out none of that shit really matters. And what actually matters is completely different. And turns out that our needs are actually pretty similar. What people need is almost the same for everybody, right? Food, shelter, clothing, and good companionship. And what's good companionship? Basically somebody who has your back. So we're talking like 17 years of studying this stuff and dispensing dubious advice. It comes down to one thing. Does this person have your back? And that can come in any number of packages, right? So I read this really cool book recently. It's called Don't Trust Your Gut, which is a lot of the message of what I'm giving. It's by this guy, Seth Stevens-Davidowitz, who was like one of the chief data officers of Google. This guy knows data, right? So he looks at these studies. There's this lady, Professor Samantha Joel, and she took like very large data sets and scrunched them all together to figure out, okay, what does actually matter for relationship satisfaction, right? And she came up with this list of 8 things, which Seth Stevens-Davidowitz called the irrelevant 8. These are the things that absolutely do not matter. And here's a crazy thing. They're also the things that all the dating apps, all the sites optimize for. So you guys want the list?
Please.
Yeah. This is
number 1.
super fascinating, but yes.
Number 1, race, ethnicity does not have any correlation with relationship satisfaction. Number 2, religion, no correlation. Height, women are big on height, does not matter. Occupation does not matter. Attractiveness, like you're like, I want somebody who's hot. Turns out it doesn't really matter all that much. Previous marital status, apparently that doesn't matter. Sexual tastes, and finally, similarity to self. And these are exactly the things, and look, I am as guilty as anybody, right? I mean, I'm particular to the hilt, but turns out none of this shit matters. And there's like 5 things that actually do matter, and they all have to do with like character, right?
So I want to ask you, before we continue, because this is probably my favorite interview so far, because we always talk about analytics and meeting in person and dating apps, but we don't really know. We just look at stuff online and our own personal experience, but you're actually a doctor on this stuff, and you could back this all up and give such a unique perspective. Mm-hmm. Those 8 things you just rattled, we always say, from what we understand, is that in order to really connect with somebody, it has to be done in person, right? Some of that's just us selling it and, marketing.
Yeah.
It's also from experience. But I actually believe that, and I want to hear your perspective from what you just said about those 8 things about what we think we need versus meeting somebody in person and feeling maybe a connection or someone having your back, what you just said.
Totally.
Do you think, when does that come along, and do you believe that needs to happen in person? And can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably why Steve and I hit it off when we first spoke, because I'm all about the in-person thing. And 300,000 years of Homo sapiens evolution did not happen in the presence of video cameras, apps, any of that, right? It was all face-to-face. And we're all designed to discern certain things about one another, which can only be done in real time in person. So you can't smell somebody online, right? And smell's like a huge part of compatibility in courtship, right? Whether you're going to have miscarriages or not is about whether the other person smells right because their immune system is compatible with yours or incompatible with yours, right? So, and another thing is you see whether this person plays well with others. You can't do that online, right? You got a little picture. It could be anybody's picture. It could be retouched. Could be 10 years ago. Could be 50 pounds ago. Could be anything. But what you want to do is you want to have this real-time interaction with someone. And these days I'm actually kind of against dates too, just like the standard idea of a date, because it's so contrived. There's nothing in human history that says, you, me, back behind palm tree, we talk. Right? That's not how things went, right? You basically had a pretty longitudinal picture of what somebody was like, unless it's an arranged marriage between 2 tribes, in which case it all goes out the window. It's like the king sees the portrait, the oil portrait of the princess. Yes, this one. And then, of course, she shows up and she doesn't look anything like her portrait. That happened, right?
Bad artist, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. off with his head. So what you want to do is you want to have as close to a real life interaction with that person as possible. So have them in context with your friends, with family, amongst other people. Does this person, how well do they treat the wait staff? Because that's how you know whether this person is actually like this. So that's why I recommend people do activities that give you longitudinal exposure to somebody, like night classes, right? You show up at the same time, week after week, you get to see what this person's actually like, or cooking class, or run club. I mean, there's all these things that you could be doing. Repeated casual contact.